Welcome back, everyone. I want to talk about, well, a tragedy today, which is the school shooting in Nashville where a trans person killed three kids and three adults. But I want to talk about something that I don't think many people are talking about, which was that a lot of the information that was radicalizing the trans movements to get guns and believing there was going to be a trans genocide, this was actually caused or instigated by the FBI. The FBI published crime stats which had skewed numbers, which I'll be showing to you all. I'll show you exactly how they skewed those numbers. And that false information was then pushed by all the major news outlets to create this fake story that there was a trans genocide, and people were freaking out. People were arming up. They were organizing militias. And then this happened. I want to talk about exactly what happened. I'm not going to pull any punches on it. The FBI falsified data and then, of course, freak people out. And this is what happened. So we'll talk about that. I also want to talk about the Trans Day of Vengeance, they're calling it, which was scheduled prior to all this. I believe actually this week or next week it's going to be happening. And, of course, people are very concerned about this given the recent shooting. And also, if we have time now, I want to get into TikTok because, well, they're talking about banning TikTok, which I generally support. Those of you who watch this show understand that I talk a lot about the Chinese Communist Party and how it uses platforms like this. The TikTok ban is not really a TikTok ban. The TikTok ban is basically Patriot Act Part 2. It would give the government basically control over every single platform of information, whether it's your phone, whether it's your local area network like your modem in your home, whether it's your computer, whether it's satellites, quantum computing, AI. It gives them control over everything. And the potential ways that this new power could be used if they pass it is beyond imagination. We'll see if we get into it. A lot to talk about today, folks. That said, thank you for being here. I do apologize that the news is not more pleasant, but what are you going to do, right? We got to be honest, right? That said, folks, those of you on Twitter, Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, we will jump over exclusively to Epoch TV after about 25 minutes. We're walking a thin line on this one because I've seen other people actually get banned on even Twitter for talking about some of this stuff. So thank you for being here. Be sure to join us on Epoch TV where we don't have to worry about getting banned. All right, folks, let's get into it. Thank you all for being here. Let's start off by the basic news. I want to talk about what actually happened. Epoch Times had the story. Dramatic body cam footage shows Nashville officers rushing to stop Christian school shooter, and I won't show you the video because it's disturbing, but if you want to watch it, you can. It says the Nashville Police Department released body cam footage of the Covenant School shooting response showing the moment officers shot and killed shooter Audrey Elizabeth Hale, a 28-year-old transgender former student who was accused of killing 6 people on Monday. It says police earlier identified the shooter who was killed by police and said Hale was a former student, she was 28 of course, and shot through the doors of the private Christian elementary school. Hale had drawn a detailed map of the school, including potential entry points, and conducted surveillance of the building before carrying out the massacre, authorities said. This was a woman who believed she was a man, by the way. Further, it states the victims included 3 9-year-old children, a substitute teacher, a custodian, and the school's administration. Officials said the 3 9-year-old children were identified by authorities. I won't say their names, but yeah, it's a real tragedy, folks. Terrible, terrible stuff. Now, I want to show you what happened just prior to this, because what actually happened prior to this, I believe, is the real story. You had these trans activist groups talking about buying guns. You had New York Times, you had NPR, you had the Young Turks, all telling trans groups, well, some of them actually directly telling them, like Young Turks, buy guns. And these are people who are normally very anti-gun. They were telling people, writing puff pieces about potential violence against trans groups and saying they need to arm up. And the painted enemy in all this was Christians whose moral values go against the trans movement and therefore are the enemy who want to kill them. That was the narrative being pushed by just about every major news outlet, at least on the left. And what was that inspired by? That was inspired by the FBI. Let me show you. Just before this, the FBI released stats on violence on on what they call anti-trans hate. It was being used to frame this narrative of genocide against transgenders. The problem with that? They skewed the numbers. They misrepresented the data. And they drew false conclusions from that data as well. Let me show you how they did it. Daily Wire actually had a good analysis on this. It says FBI stats on 2021 anti-trans hate crimes don't support claims of genocide. It says Americans who claim to be transgender were the victims of 271 hate crimes in 2021. It said with few of the crimes being serious, undercutting the claims that the community is facing genocide, according to FBI data released this week. Of the 177 cases where the offender's race was known, 81 offenders were black, about 60 were white, 20 were Hispanic, and 1 was Asian. Still, even that data could be misleading as FBI statistics inflate the number of white hate crime perpetrators, and they inflated the number of white people who they say did this, and this is how they did it. They counted Hispanics and Arabs as white. It says, to a limited extent, the data can be adjusted to treat Hispanic as a race separate from black and white, which the Daily Wire did in the above numbers, but in many cases the ethnicities were not even recorded, forcing them to be treated as white. So if the ethnicity could not be recorded, they defaulted as white people, which is how they frame this narrative of white extremism targeting the trans community in a genocide. It says, although Arab is counted as a separate category when it comes to the victim, there is no such category for perpetrators, leaving them to generally be counted as white, because that was how they defaulted everything. People of Arab descent have been behind some anti-Jewish crimes, as Daily Wire is big on that, and their inclusion in statistics could change the anti-transgender breakdown as well. In big part here, the data does not support the notion widely pushed by activists and Democrats that there is a genocide of transgenders underway. And you had politicians, you had most of the major news outlets, you had activist groups all claiming that there was a genocide of transgender individuals. There's a genocide. Arm up, buy guns, start militias. This is what the mainstream media were actually saying. And this is, again, NPR, this is Young Turks telling people this. The people are coming to kill you, you better buy a gun. That's what they were telling them. This is not me saying it. This is what they were saying. And I'll show you the videos later in this episode. I will show you what they were saying. And these groups, I would argue, are radicalizing these people because they're convincing them that people are out to kill them using fake data. And what does the data actually say? You be the judge if this is a genocide.